Singapore is home to fewer than 6 million people, yet it leads the Southeast Asian region in venture capital investment and has been home to 10 unicorns. Our guest is a Singapore-based entrepreneur, investor, and mentor, and he's sharing his startup stories along with an insider's view of the thriving Singapore startup ecosystem. Oh, we're going to have a delicious conversation. Stay tuned for the Startup Life Live show. Let's glow. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Startup Life Live show. I'm your host, Ande, Lyons, 4 times founder and startup champion to founders around the world. And after raising 4 businesses of my own, I now share founders' startup stories to help newly minted business owners find the solutions and inspiration they need to succeed. And thank you for carving out time to up your founder game while cheering on a fellow founder, because as you do better, your business will do better. And you never know what kind of solutions, tools, resources, or just a nice shot in the arm of inspiration that you'll receive from a guest on the Startup Life Live show. And I'm sending out a big hello to all the live viewers, and hey, replay viewers, thank you so much for tuning in wherever you may be. We're live right now on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Twitch. And so if you can, please click the live button, whether you're watching live, the like button, whether you're watching live or via replay, because that helps get these stories out to other founders that are out in the world. So thank you so much. And if you're tuning in from YouTube and you haven't done so already, I would be so grateful for you to click on that subscribe button and the bell icon. And if you'd like to receive an alert whenever I go live, I'm posting a show once or twice a week at least, because I'm here Tuesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. EST. Please join the Startup Life Live meetup group. You can scan that QR code right there or go to the link. Links will be in the show notes. It's bit.ly/Startup Life Live. Live is in all caps. And when you join the Startup Life Live group, you'll receive a notification about a new show or a founder that might be in alignment with what you're trying to build and launch and scale. And you can come on and ask questions and get all the advice that you need to succeed. So I am so excited to tell you about our guest today, who, is live from Singapore. So, the poor guy, he's been up for forever. Let me just throw up a little marketing piece while I read the background for you, okay? His name is Prantik Mazumdar, and he began his entrepreneurial journey with Happy Marketer in 2011, where he spent a decade building and scaling one of the top independent digital marketing service firms in the region. In February 2019, Prantik had a successful exit when Happy Marketer was sold to an American digital enterprise called Merkle, which is part of the Dentsu International, the largest Japanese advertising conglomerate. And Prantik is an active angel and venture investor, mentor, advisor, and speaker through organizations like Quest Ventures, Thai Singapore, and US Angel Ventures. And he is an entrepreneur in resident at INSEAD, which is one of the top business schools on the planet. Oh my gosh. I'm over the moon. So grateful to have this phenomenal founder, entrepreneur, mentor, investor joining us today. Let's welcome to the show the one and only Prantik Mazumdar. Welcome to the show.
But I feel like I'm ecstatic to be on the show. It's nearly 1 a.m. in Asia, but absolutely ecstatic. It feels like either I'm going live on The Tonight Show, or I'm going live on a WWE wrestling match. Yes. It's super exciting, Ande, the way you host this.
Thank you so much. And I'm so grateful you stayed up to come and have a conversation with me today and with all of us, because your background is amazing. You've done phenomenal things in your life. But let's just take a quick moment and please share, Prantik, what are you feeling especially grateful for before we begin our conversation?
I think, in the short run, I'm just extremely happy because this evening, Happy Marketer won another award. So I think in the short run right now, I'm just very happy that today's been a good day. one of
What?
clients and the team that's been working on a campaign in the region that just got a award in a regional marketing show. But I think overall, I'm grateful for many things. One is, to be honest, just to be doubly vaccinated, to be alive, to be healthy.
Oh my
I think
gosh.
that's fundamental. I think I'm
It
very
is.
fortunate. Also, the fact, no, absolutely. I think these are small things which may seem small, but this is life changing, right? And we're talking about entrepreneurship, and I'm really grateful that there are entrepreneurs and business folks and scientists in the medical world who could so quickly figure out a way to get the vaccine out, not in the lab, but the real
Yes.
world. So another reason to celebrate founders and entrepreneurs. So yeah, that's what I'm excited and grateful for.
Oh, well, I am feeling it with you too, 100%. And it's so funny. Jeanette is here, and Jeanette was on last Friday. Jeanette, you were saying the same thing, that you were just so happy to be alive and here and healthy and vaccinated. So that's wonderful. And hello, Brent. Thank you for tuning in from Ottawa, Canada. I'm so grateful that you are here. And I know you're always sharing great information with your Twitter Space conversations. And I agree. I can't wait to hear all the scoop from Prantik and his amazing background and amazing life, and to learn more about Singapore's startup ecosystem, because we tend to focus a little too much on the US here, and we're so excited to hear the kind of support that you get and in your neck of the woods. But let's first chat about what called you to become an entrepreneur. Some folks were moving product and ideas in elementary school at the age of 8. Others had parents who were entrepreneurs, so they got a taste then, and others were just thrust into it. Please share with everybody your entrepreneur story.
Absolutely happy to do so. To be honest, it was a lot to do with chance. Of course, I do believe the chances and opportunities do come if one kind of is open to new ideas and open to kind of new conversations, like you were saying, and open to letting things happen to you sometimes. So for me, the story really was, I moved to Singapore 2 decades ago. I went through university in Singapore. The first taste I got of entrepreneurship was during a university program called NUS Overseas College, or the Technopreneurship program that we had. And my close friend, who's the original founder of Happy Marketer, who pulled me in, and I'll get to that story in a bit, he happened to be sent to the US as part of the Overseas College program. And I was part of the resident program in Singapore. So in hindsight, that was our very first initiative in the university, which kind of laid the seeds of what entrepreneurship, the potential of entrepreneurship and what it could really mean. And then we went in different paths. He took the harder route, to be honest. He decided that he isn't going to work for anyone else. He's going to start his own company. I took the safer route, to be honest, and I went down the path of a steady job with the Singapore government. But again, startup ecosystem. I was part of a body called Enterprise Singapore, or back in the day, International Enterprise Singapore, helping local startups internationalize. So I was working with mobile telecom companies. In fact, that's what led me to the US for the first time in 2006. I was in Silicon Valley, in Texas, in New York, helping open doors for Singapore companies. And that led me to a couple of roles with 2 private sector SMEs and startups in Singapore, before Rachit, my dear friend and the original founder, pulling me in, saying, "Hey, buddy, look, it's time to kind of do something together." So in 2011, 2 years after Happy Marketer officially started, he pulled me in as a co-founder, and yeah, it's been 10 years since.
Oh,
So
but
I suppose in
he was
hindsight, I can connect the dots. Yeah, but that's how it kind of began.
And what a smart founder he was to bring you in, because look at the experience that you had. First of all, the fact that you two, and this is what I love about educational institutions, Prantik, is their willingness, their idea labs, their innovation labs, their accelerators, their hubs for helping their students get an understanding of what it means to launch, brand, and build a business, which is so exciting. But then by working with the government, which was then obviously, funding and supporting entrepreneurship in the country, you got to see a lot about how founders navigate, and I'm sure you saw some wins and I'm sure you saw some fails, from founders during all of that. So your co-founder who brought you into the Happy Marketer was, as we say here in Boston, wicked smart to bring you in because you had such great exposure and you had already started to see who the players were and the funding challenges and opportunities, et cetera, so that you could bring that to Happy Marketer. So what was it about digital marketing that really lit you up? And this is a twofold question. And how did he come up with the name Happy Marketer? Because I love that name, something fierce.
Sure, I'll get to that. So why digital marketing? So, prior to joining Rachit, I was with a brand consulting firm. And a realization that struck me was I wasn't really enjoying it for two reasons. One was the fact that when I was a consultant, I was merely advising. I wasn't implementing, I wasn't really cracking a solution. So step one, I really wanted to get in thick of things, to implement solutions and to see impact and change. Impact in terms of revenue, in terms of helping a client get new customers. And this was just coinciding with the time when the likes of Google's and Facebook's were setting up presence in Southeast Asia, in Singapore as their headquarters. And so that's when I figured, wow, beyond the world of consulting, television, radio, mass communications, here's a new tool that could help create not just awareness, but to drive people to websites, to convert them into leads and sales and recurring. I could actually see monetary benefit, to our clients. In fact, our tagline when we kind of kickstarted Happy Marketer was business from the web. Today, it seems like a no-brainer. But back in the day, when marketing was all about just top of the funnel awareness, clients were like, wow, you actually generate leads and sales for me. So that's the reason why digital marketing or data-driven marketing, as we called it, seems so appealing. On Happy Marketer, well, again, all credit goes to Rachit because I think, we started just after the financial crisis 2008, after the Lehman crisis. And I think there was a lot of stress in the market. We realized that marketing, advertising were amongst the first budgets to be cut off from the P&Ls after travel and entertainment. And we realized that I think the challenge with marketing was a lack of accountability. So we said, you know what, why don't we bring in the power and the science of data-driven digital marketing to marketers and business owners, and hopefully we can make marketers happy. So the goal was to make marketers happy. So that's why Happy
There
Marketer.
we go. I mean, because
Well,
and I asked that because everybody was having a very clever name, right? And certainly as we switched into the 2010s, we started hearing, the .lys and the .this and the .that, and names that you had to go, what does that mean, right? But, Happy Marketer, folks, this is marketing is the foundation of your business. And it's your branding, it's everything you need to do to reach your customers, get those sales, bring in the money. And it's so fundamental to a business's success. It doesn't matter what fancy schmancy, life-saving technology you may be creating. If you can't reach your customers, nothing's going to happen. And why not be happy while you're doing it? And so I was really wonderful about the name. And here's what I love about what you were saying about having an impact and implementing and executing. This is a common ingredient, Prantik, in founders' nature. They just love to solve problems, right? It's like, I haven't met a problem I didn't love, even though sometimes they're pulling their hair out and they're losing sleep, or as I like to say, sleeping like a baby, waking up every 2 hours crying. But, it's still so wonderful that you found that ingredient inside of yourself as well. I love that. And so when you came on board with the Happy Marketer, what did Rachit want you to do? Like, where did you see your role as being so important, helping that company really scale into the millions of revenue?
Yep, because we were friends, we kind of had a good gauge of our personalities, strengths and weaknesses. So I think we naturally gravitated towards our own interest points. So Rachit's extremely detailed oriented. He's great at planning. So, he took over the reins of finance, HR, people planning, project management, delivery. And I think what came naturally to me was building partnerships, driving business development and sales, being the face of the business, essentially trying to, bring in money in business.
Right.
That's how we kind of gelled really well. There was, we've always believed that as co-founders, I think it's important to be bound by common values, but at the same time, you've got to have complementary skill sets. And we've been blessed that way that, we've been bound by common values by, there's an incredible bond between the two of us. But I think in terms
Oh,
of skill sets,
that's great.
try and play different roles for the business.
Well, I got to bring up a comment. Hi, Rachit. And so you're tuning in. He says, "Thanks, Andy. Don't know if I was wicked smart." Now, how did you know? I mean, that's perfect Boston lingo there, Rachit. But it was definitely wicked lucky that Prantik said yes and took the business to the stratosphere. Well, I got to tell you, this is, founders, if you're doing solo, really consider bringing in a co-founder to really, so you can focus on what you do best, and then the co-founder can focus on what they do best. And it really can be an incredible bond and an incredible relationship along the way. So one thing that we like to talk about on the Startup Life Live show, Prantik, is that important factor called prove your value proposition, because it really is the number one reason startups fail, closely followed by timing, everybody. But a lot of times we build things that the market just doesn't want, or timing wise, the market is not ready for. And I'd love to bring Uber and Prantik as an example, right? Who would get into a stranger's car, or Airbnb before 2008? Who would have a stranger in their home? But the economic crisis happened and people are like, I need some money. And so those companies had a good start for timing. How did you and Rachit prove the value proposition of Happy Marketer? What did you learn as you started to evolve? Because sometimes where we are today in the launch stage of a startup, customer feedback is one thing, but then as you get into larger enterprise stage, you're going to have some evolution of the product and the conversation. Would you please share how you all found your customer segment, found, proved that folks wanted what you were selling? How did you reach folks, etc.? Thank you.
Absolutely, Andy. It was like I was saying, I think we got to remember the context of 2009. Businesses were struggling. SMEs, especially small medium businesses, had a tough time. And I think fundamentally, as businesses and marketers were cutting down on marketing advertising budgets, I think we took that as an opportunity. We said, look, doesn't matter how much money you have. You could have 1,000, 10,000, 50,000. Give us a chance to either prove or disprove that digital can bring in measurable, impactful value to your business. And we use this phenomena of measurable, accountable marketing, something that today may be common speak, but back then was unheard of. So this was basically we targeted people who was on print, radio, TV. So I went and asked, I remember a professor in a business school that, sir, when you advertise in The Economist, do you know how many people see the ad and how many students enroll because of that? And that's the question, because clearly he didn't. And I said, you know what, why don't you give me a tenth of that budget? I will at least tell you if people saw the ad, how many clicked on it, how many signed up, and how many enrolled. And it was a debate that he said, you know what, let me throw the challenge to you. Why don't you prove or disprove the hypothesis? And so we took that narrative to business schools, to food and beverage outlets like a Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. We took it to hotels, hotel chains. So essentially, we took it to businesses where we could either help them sell online, help them get enrollment online, or help drive traffic to their stores, right? So again, we wanted to show them tangible sales or generation. And we were fairly confident because both Rachit and I, funnily, we're not marketers, we're not trade marketers, to be honest. We both come from a techie computer science, computer engineering background. So what is, again, common place of data technology, we were early in the game. So we said, you know what? We are marketing misfits. So let us take what we know of data, tech, analytics, and let's bring that science to the art of marketing, and let's give it a shot. And we were fortunate that some of these early customers gave us a chance to prove or disprove ourselves. And we were lucky. We were early in the game. We had the partnerships of the Googles and Facebooks in this part of the world. We managed to prove it.
Wow. And of course, nowadays, even mentioning the fact, try digital marketing to, prove, of course, everybody knows that today and in November of 2021, but back in 2010, 2011, people were still going, And the beauty of digital marketing that you brought to the forefront is that it is quantifiable. You can point to numbers, and folks, marketing is a 100% numbers game. It is about the data. The data will give you the feedback that you need. It's not about a beautiful created brand. It's not about, a beautiful meme that's meaningful. It really is about the numbers and how you're reaching them and what's working and what's not. And that's why having an understanding of customer acquisition is important, right, Prantik? Understanding who your customers are. Yes? Yeah.
No, and that's the beauty of digital, because digital allows us to bring down broader customer personas in all micro segments. So, if I'm an insurance brand and I want to sell travel insurance, if you already have travel insurance, I shouldn't be reaching out to you unless I know that you're looking for options, right? Likewise, if I'm selling family insurance and you're not interested, or you're a solo single person, maybe there's no relevance. So I think the ability for digital to personalize at scale, to bring in relevance, because relevance also drives higher conversions, higher effectiveness. And that's the beauty and power of digital, is we can go micro segments, we can target at pro segment level, and we can personalize at scale. Of course, it's easier said than done. You need to do a lot of things right. A lot of planning goes into it. But again, in digital is you can test. You can test option A versus B and see what works. As you said, it's have hypotheses, but let the data do the talking. So that's the benefit that digital brings to the table.
And it's all an experiment. So you have to be an observer instead of take it personally. Yeah.
Oh, yes. And I like people being personal. I like people having their ego in, you obviously have an hypothesis as a business owner, and that's a great starting point. All I'm saying is have those hypotheses, but just like the science experiments in school, try different things, see what works. Again, what works in one country or in one state may not necessarily hold in another state, right?
That's right.
And that's the beauty. That's the beauty. There is no one size fit all. You've got to understand the customer persona, their needs, their insights from their behavior, and customize and personalize accordingly.
Absolutely. I'm going to just throw one of my favorite little graphs up here just to remind everybody, sure, it's nice to know what their age is and all of that, but you really have to understand what motivates them, what their goals are, what their behaviors are, what their expectations are. This is why we do digital marketing. It's so much fun. And what I really appreciate is that your love of being curious. Founders need to be curious instead of thinking that they already have the answer, so to speak. Now, did you and Rachit have to raise money, or were you able to bootstrap and just let customers fund your next step in your growth?
It was completely bootstrapped, and this is where Rachit's financial prowess comes to play. I think what he did very, very well right from month one is to kind of have a prudent discipline that, we're going to run the business on the basis of customers' money, because we realized early two things: that we were a services business. No VC was going to look at a services people-driven business. We could have taken debt and loans, but we didn't really want to go down that route. And fundamentally, something that is the best money raised is, getting customers to open their wallets for the services you provide. So yeah, all credit to Rachit for driving that behavior.
Yay, Rachit. But we have the perfect example right now because MailChimp just sold for $1 billion and they were completely bootstrapped folks. And they took their time in growing, which is what you did. You had a nice, 10-year building up over the period of time. And this segues nicely into the exit. And we have some great comments in the chat room here, but I'm going to pull them up in just a second. I just want to hear the exit story. Then we'll get into Prantik's incredible founder, investor, and mentor experience. But how did you know it was time to sell? Were you approached by Merkle? How did that because when we had Sharish on the show a few weeks ago, he has the book From Startup to Exit. And he was talking about how it's always good to keep a couple of names in your back pocket of acquisition companies. How did this unfold for you and Rachit?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think we were looking to sell. And in hindsight, and I'll tell you the story in hindsight, I think that worked in our favor. We actually had a business plan to grow the business over the next 30 years to $1 billion enterprise, to be honest. We were heavily influenced by, we were these two young, naive kids. We were influenced by a lot of the tech services companies like, the Infosys, Wipro, TCS, Accenture, Capgemini. And, we kind of studied that over 30, 40, 50 years, they were billion-dollar businesses. And we were in no rush. We were happy doing what we were doing. But again, as with many things in life, friends, connections, and conversations lead to interesting opportunities. So one of our classmates from our university, who also happens to be a very dear friend, Shivanu, he connected us to a gentleman called Ted Bray. And I wonder if Ted Bray is watching. He's in the US right now. He's from Colorado. So
Yay.
So Ted, if you're watching or if you're watching the replay, so Ted was connected with us, and Ted was with Merkle back then, and he was sent to Asia to drive and grow the Asia business. And a huge part of the strategy was acquisition. So we had a lovely evening with Ted Bray over a couple of sangrias, and a lovely gentleman. I think he made his ambitions clear that, he wanted to strike a partnership and an acquisition. But I think we were also fairly clear saying, look, we were not ready. We never thought of selling the business. So long story short, it happened to us. It took 2 years. Year one was Rachit and me, debating, deliberating, going back and forth, acting pricey or naive. We said we're not really sure. But what I liked is Merkle and Dentsu, the parent entity, they took their time, they played their cards right, they quoted us, we did some joint projects. It was a bit of dating, right? And I think all credit to Ted if he's watching this. And I think we got to a stage where we felt comfortable. We said, look, let's entertain this option. And so year two, that's when things got serious. We hired a lawyer, we hired a iBanker, to ensure that our books are in order and our narrative is right. And that's when the negotiation process kick-started. And it took about 9 to 12 months to close the deal. So that's how it actually happened between 2017.
Yeah. And what I love about this story is that Ted and Merkle and Dentsu, they actually took you on a date. So, you did some collaborations, right? So they dated you for a while so you could get a feel for them in action, what it was like and what their culture was like. Because I imagine when you go to exit and be acquired by a company, it can't just be about the money, right? You want to know that that company is in alignment with the values and the culture that you have built over the years. Yeah.
Spot on. I think the very first thing we wanted to check was for cultural alignment. And, and there are a few things, because it's not just Rachit and me. There were 60 other people who have put in their heart, soul, time, money, effort, of prime time of their lives into Happy Marketer. So we collectively call them the Happy Tribe. And so we wanted to ensure that the Happy Tribe was safe and secure, that no jobs were going to be cut. So I think once we got that alignment, I think we felt that this could be home. The next thing was their vision and their offering. In fact, it's funny. I still remember the first time Ted showed us their offering, in terms of all the services that Merkle. So Merkle, is also a wonderful story of a startup that started from Baltimore grew to $1 billion in 30 years, and then was acquired by Dentsu. So it kind of gave us a very good sense that, wow, if Merkle could do this, maybe
Yes.
within the Merkle network, we could accelerate our growth as well. And to the extent that the Merkle team thought the Happy Marketer team and our offerings and our positioning was very much aligned, to the extent that they started calling us Mini Merkle. And even today, that's the joke that, we are Mini Merkle, or we are Mini
You were a
Merkle of
mini me, mini
Southeast
Merkel.
Asia.
Oh, that is so wonderful. And
I,
oh, go ahead.
No, I was saying, I don't know if that was their ploy to kind of quote us and get us to agree. It clearly worked. But no, but you're absolutely right, Andy, that I think the cultural resonance is probably the most important thing, when you're looking to exit and sell your business, for sure.
Yeah, especially if you weren't on like a 3-year growth plan and exit strategy, and the team was ready to go anyway. When you have worked shoulder to shoulder with a team of folks, the happy tribe in your case, you want that to be a great outcome. But also, I love the evolution of yours and Rachit's thinking, okay, we want to, do this for the next 30, 40 years, right? We want to take this to a unicorn status, and we know we can. But there must have been something that you saw in the acquisition that would also feed you, in who you be. And so that maybe it was to go on and do other things. What was it about you that, Rachit, that you were able to evolve from that one vision of becoming, taking Happy Marketer to be its own unicorn to, what, I think we can do more together with Merkle in this way.
Yeah, certainly. I think there were 3 distinct factors. One was the fact that we genuinely believed that, and we still continue to believe that Merkle could help us accelerate. So if we thought 30 years, with Merkle, it's possible to get there in half the time, right? That's one. Number 2 is, I think, the macroeconomic situation. I think there's a lot of consolidation in the marketing agency world. And so we thought that by piggybacking and, it's literally, it reminds me of the quote of, growing or seeing on the giant of shoulders. So we said it's really about leverage. If we can leverage their technology, their partnerships, the cash that they would put into the business. So that's the commercial side of, what kind of compelled us to kind of eventually sign the papers. On the personal side, to be honest, I think both Rachit more than I, Rachit's given, nearly 20 years of his life to this journey. I'd given about 15, all put together. And we said, this would also allow us some liquidity as well as some time, because both of us were early in our marriages. We have, both of us have a son. So we said it also gives us time and bandwidth and some resources to look after our families, as well as consider doing other things in life in the coming years. So there's always a personal story, a personal backstory to any entrepreneur's journey. So yes, there was the commercial side, as well as the people side, the culture side, and the personal side.
This is so good. I'm having an Andy-licious moment, everybody.
I love that.
Here's why, Prantik. I'm going to capture.
You should patent that word.
I should. I'm going to capture this. I'm going to have this segment about the exit and just put it into its own little video, because it is so important what you have just shared, because many founders are confronted. I mean, I've heard horror stories, right, where some of the board of advisors have said, oh, no, we can get a greater number. No, we need to wait. And then they waited too long and they sold for assets and liabilities. It's a fine line between the timing of all of this. So your advice was just so brilliant and spot on and so meaningful. So now you created some liquidity and some time in your life. And this is where, folks, you've got to go to Prantik's LinkedIn. We've got his LinkedIn profile right here, but it'll also be in the show notes. Go check out all the investments he's been able to participate in now and help so many founders. I'm going to hop onto the questions here in the audience because we got some great questions. And we have Kamen Tao, Tiao, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but he's asking, what are the most essential elements that a startup must have to succeed? I love this question because there are some real foundational elements a founder and startup needs. Share, Prantik.
Thank you, Carmen, for that question. So I think obviously there are tons of variables, but the three that are quite close to my heart is, the definition, the clarity and the definition of the problem that the founders want to solve, and the size of the problem, how large, and large doesn't have to be always revenue dollar value, but how impactful is this problem? Like, are you trying to solve, carbon emissions? Are you trying to solve financial equity for education, for example, right? So how meaningful and how large is that problem set? To me, I would typically start assessing that. The next is the founding team or the founder that's kind of trying to solve this problem. Is the right founder problem fit? I think there's a lot of chatter and noise about product market fit, which is important, and I'll come to that. But I think prior to that, I think it's critical to really assess that, are we the right founders, or are they the right founders for this problem? You could be great founders, but just because you've solved a problem in the advertising marketing world, maybe you can solve something in fintech or insurtech. So that's what I call the founder problem fit. And the third is, I think that's when I would come to the product market fit, is the approach or the solution you're offering. Is that really compelling customers to use your product or service, and are they willing to open their wallets? Now, again, in the product world, you're not necessarily looking for profitability immediately, but I think you should definitely look out for not just new customers, but are customers regularly using it? Are they becoming champions advocates? Are they bringing in new customers and friends to try it out? So these are three factors that I would typically look at when assessing, startup opportunities.
Right. And I love those three factors. I, with all four of my businesses, I did not have what would be called the founder market fit at all. But I think sometimes you can see traits in a founder that that they will never give up until they figure it out. So I think perhaps, and I'd love to know your thoughts, if they don't have a super founder market fit, they can bring on advisors that do. They can bring on team members that can help lift that up. What are your thoughts, Prantik?
No, absolutely. I was going to say, the market fit is not necessarily, it's not a direct yes or no answer. The way I look at it is, today, if I was to assess and if I felt I don't have the right founder market fit, I think one of the things that I would do is to ask myself, be honest, and firstly acknowledge that I don't have the founder market fit, and then ask questions, what could I do to change it? And that's why I like founders who are dogmatic and resilient and persistent about the problem, but flexible in their approach. So just because one approach doesn't work, that doesn't mean he or she can't be flexible. And as you rightly said, it could be new co-founders, it could be advisory board, it could be a different set of investors, it could be completely changing your solution. It could even be figuring out a different bunch of early stage employees who you could incentivize through ESOP plans, right? And so to me, it's the resilience and persistence towards that problem. But I think at the same time, there needs to be a flexibility in their approach.
So good. And Kamen, thank you. Kamen saying, folks, thank you for the clear and concise reply. And I'm saying thank you, Kamen, for the excellent question. And then Terrence Q is chiming in. He's saying, other than sales, what is the most important thing for an entrepreneur to keep in mind considering today's marketing landscape? Ooh. And, let's talk a little bit about today's marketing landscape, because, things have been changing. But what is the most important thing for an entrepreneur to keep in mind, Prantik?
I would say two things. I would say for an entrepreneur, I think fundamentally, irrespective of marketing or any other domain, people. I think, the company it can be made or broken by the quality of the people that one hires, nurtures, retains. In fact, I was just telling someone this evening is, a lot of companies on LinkedIn, you would see that on day one, the employee gets a wonderful package, a gift, but very few people celebrate the exit. And I feel that one should celebrate the exit as much, if not more, because that's the last day for a person, and he or she would remember that. And it's important that as he or she becomes an alumni, that they remember that exit. So I think it's the people management life cycle. It's a constant entrepreneur, especially in a service business like ours. The other is, I suppose, part of the people element is, to Terence's question, as the marketing landscape changes, a lot is being automated, which means we got to be able to figure out what kind of tools, technology, or the tech stack to invest in so that we know what can be automated and what can't be or what shouldn't be automated. And hence, your best resources or best people should be allocated to both those buckets. Someone who can manage the automation and someone who can take very good care of the things that can't or shouldn't be automated. So, in my view, way beyond sales, it's the people life cycle, and the automation part is something that I would look at.
I love that comment. I almost did stitch that on a pillow with this, but celebrate the team member's exit. You're right. We tend to celebrate their coming on and, oh my gosh, all the fanfare. But you're right, folks. I feel so strongly about this. When an employee, a team member, goes on to another part of their own journey in life professionally, your brand needs to continue. You need to leave them feeling really great about their time with you and honored for their time with you. So, Prantik, that's just like, one of my favorite things anybody's ever said. Because they may end up hiring your company when they leave, right? For wherever they're going to go work. It's so important that they gave of themselves during their time with you, and especially in the startup days when everybody's wearing so many different tiaras, hats, etc. That's just, I love that, something fierce. I just want to say hi to Asia K. Asia, so happy to see you today. And she was saying, hi, Andy and Prantik. Thank you for sharing your growth process. Really, we learn so much from these founder stories. What else is Asia also says, I don't know if you mentioned what will this budget for you and how important is it when you want to brand a brand to make metrics? Yes, we did. We talked about that a little bit earlier. We're going to go right into some investor criteria questions because it looks like you've been having a great time, Prantik, investing. I mean, when I look at the lineup of companies on your LinkedIn profile, it's like, wow, you are adding wind to so many startup sales. First of all, why did you feel so called to go and then put money and invest into founders' companies?
I think the honest answer is, over the last 20 years, we spoke about how good an ecosystem Singapore has built for founders and startups. And Rachit and I and the entire Happy Tribe has been a net beneficiary of this meritocratic system. So in my heart, it's really about, so it's not really as much about being altruistic and giving back, but it's about, kind of paying forward and creating opportunities so that we can create more employability, more opportunities. Even if companies fail, that's fine. I think the idea is to provide meritocratic, equitable opportunities, something that I've been blessed with all my life. So I think a lot of the investments that I've kind of done is generally a function of really equitable opportunities. There are many ways to make money. One could make money by investing in Bitcoin and Tesla and various other stocks. But I think it's about investing time, effort, connectivity, whatever resources that one has, and pay it forward and create a platform. And there's a selfish aspect, because if these companies do well, obviously I tend to benefit as well. So there is once again, there's a personal angle and a larger social angle as well.
So when you're looking at a company that you'd like to invest in, do you have a list of criteria? I mean, we talked about the fundamentals for a startup, of course, but is there something that you're looking for? Is it something that's maybe the criteria is they need to be in your bandwidth, your expertise? What are some of the things that you when you get that one sheet, or you see that pitch, or you hear that pitch, that you say, I think that's something for me to put money into?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I must qualify. I'm still fairly new to this. I've been doing this only for 2.5 years. B, I have had few exits, but still a long way to go. But
Yeah.
again, I in life, I try and focus on what's in my control. So to be honest, when I started, it was fairly random because I didn't have many deals coming in. It takes a while to create deal flow. But as deal flow increased, that's when I started connecting the dots backwards and started assessing for myself as to what is it that I'm really interested in. So apart from those three things that I mentioned in terms of in terms of problem definition, size of problem, impact of the problem, founder problem fit, and product market fit, I started creating a criteria for myself. So I wanted to invest in companies from Southeast Asia and India, what I typically call unloved Asia. So of course, in larger Asia, typically a lot of the attention goes to Australia, China. These are, fairly developed, large economies. But Southeast Asia, of course, Singapore is a developed city, but again, the largest Southeast Asia population is about 600 million. Massive opportunity here. And I think most of Southeast Asia is still unloved. So I said it's time to show some love to
I
this
love
particular
that.
zone. And then there are a few industries where either I have an interest or an affinity, or I have an illusion that I understand this space a bit better. So there are industries like insurance, financial services, logistics, mostly B2B. So if you look at most of my investments, they are likely to be in the B2B space because I have run a B2B company. And I think, relatively speaking, in the maturity of the market, the maturity of the market we operate in, I think B2B probably is relatively a safer bet than B2C because it takes millions or hundreds of millions of dollars to scale e-commerce companies like Amazon's and Uber's, etc. So my preference has been in insurtech, fintech, health tech, essentially any B2B space where technology is a common spine and it can make a difference, it can transform an industry and make it more efficient and effective. So that's been my broad thesis. Again, typically early stage investments from Southeast Asia in these domains. That's how I typically
and how do you define early stage, Prantik?
Yeah, typically pre-series A, it could be seed stage or pre-seed as well. Generally, my preference is I haven't invested in anything that hasn't generated revenue yet. So what I look for is not massive revenue, but I look at the quality of the revenue, which means who is the customer that's paying? Are they repeat buyers? So I would rather invest in a business that has 2 customers but repeat customers, as opposed to someone that has 10 customers but no repeat business. So pre-series A, seed stage, even pre-seed, but with decent repetitive revenue.
I want all of you founders, especially if you're raising funds, raising capital, to really remember what Prantik just said about the quality of the revenue. That's something you can really drive home if you've nailed that part in your business model and you're trying to raise funds. And this is why traction, folks, is so important in your business. You can certainly spend all sorts of time trying to raise capital. But if you focus that same amount of money and energy into customer acquisition, you're going to have a more valuable business and you'll be able to get a better value when you go to sell some equity in your business, and you'll be able to hold on to more ownership. Do you agree with that, Prantik?
Oh, certainly. I think, in fact, as I look at various businesses, there are fundamentally 3 R's that I kind of consolidate and look at. One is, of course, raising capital. That's the one you touched about. That's important. You got to be raising. The other is racing for growth. Is how do you traction? How do you keep growing revenue? How do you grow the quality of the revenue? How do you ensure the lifetime value is higher than your cost of acquisition over time? And the third is in a competitive space, especially in digitized products. In many industries, it tends to be winner take all or few winners take all. And hence, there is also an element of removing competition. That's the third R. Now, you either remove competition by being the best or being different, or M&A or acquisition, right? So to me,
Right.
these three R's, as you scale up, raise, race, and remove, I think become, the cornerstone of what an entrepreneur needs to focus on.
I love that advice. That is just, folks, I really am just over the moon. So happy with the wonderful advice we're getting from Prantik today. But you know what he did? He mentioned one of my favorite things that I love talking about, and that is he talked about the long-term value and customer acquisition. So I'm going to pull this little piece up here and remind you that if you go to my YouTube channel under Andelicious Advice, you're going to get the video on how to calculate LTV CAC ratio and what it all means and why you need to care about that. So thank you for bringing up my favorite acronyms. So another question I have for you is, as founders are seeking capital, any advice on how to reach out, maybe a cold call, or is it a warm introduction best? What advice do you have for founders who are seeking investment money right now?
Yeah, I think the good news is I think it's a great time to be a founder. There's lots of liquidity in the market, right from institutional capital, VC PEs to angel syndicates to even common folks who are crowdfunding through angel lists. So I think it's a great time to be a founder from a raising perspective.
Yeah.
In terms of reaching out, I think to me, just like quality of revenue, quality of the money matters as well. So you might have heard of smart money, whatever you like to call it. I think you need to figure out what's the amount, and you also need to figure out how do you want to best divvy that up. So for example, I was speaking to a founder in the fitness industry this morning, and she wanted to raise $500,000. And my suggestion was, look, you have many choices. What if one person is willing to cut that $500,000 check? Will you be happy with that? Or would you want 4 people to put in, let's say, 100K each? The remaining 100K, you probably want to give it to a syndicate, because, going to a syndicate which has 100 people could help spread the word. Even those 4 people, maybe you want to break it down into what kind of value can they bring beyond the money. Maybe one is an influencer. Maybe one can help you with finance. Maybe one is great on the marketing side of things, right? So I think because there is so much money in the system, I think founders today can and should be a bit picky about who are they raising capital from. So typically I would design a ideal cap table before reaching out to people. And once you have designed a basic template of the cap table, then the couple of suggestions I have is, one of the best ways I've found that warm introductions work is to reach out to a founder who has raised money, right? So can that founder talk to his VC or his investor saying, hey, look, I have this buddy who is doing this. Can you have a chat? I think referrals always help, especially if it's from a fellow founder, right? The fellow founder would tell you that, what, you should or you shouldn't raise from this one. And a recommendation always helps. Of course, you can write in cold, or you can do cold calls, or I have a lot of founders who reach out to me cold on LinkedIn. Nothing wrong with that. Just that it may take a bit of time for the investor to get back to you because he or she may not be familiar with you. But I would always try and reach out to an existing founder if possible.
I think that advice is outstanding. And what I really love about what you said, and founders really take this in, create the ideal cap table. And if anybody needs any help in understanding cap tables, I'd head over to the Capital Network. They're based here in Boston. I'll put a link to them. They are always educating founders virtually on how to create cap tables. It's so important. And to me, just having that visual to help guide you is essential. Let's hop on over to how things are going here for the startup ecosystem in Singapore. Clearly, it's vibrant, it's thriving. I read some information about how the government is really, supporting the ecosystem there. But first, share with us, how did COVID affect your startup ecosystem in Singapore?
Yes, Singapore, is, like you said, we are below 6 million in terms of people. So I think what's important to remember about Singapore is the best and the only critical resource that the country has is human capital. We don't really have an agrarian economy. Even our water comes in from our neighboring countries. So pretty much Singapore, whilst geopolitically it's very strategically located in Asia and Southeast Asia, it's done phenomenally well, in its 50 plus years of independence. But I think what's important to bear in mind that as a country, we, unlike in US, unlike in China, we don't have a hinterland. It's a very, very tiny population. So we are very much reliant on the China, on the Indias, or the Europes and the Americas or Australias as a marketplace. So with trade coming to a halt, with travel coming to a halt, I think 2020 was rather difficult, especially for industries, your traditional industries, your retails, your F&B, your travel industries, which I'm sure is true in most parts of the world. But what's different is, for example, when the US started kind of opening up, the US has a very large domestic population. So even the airlines could start flying to.
Yep, the airlines could start hopping over to different hubs, etc. I think Prantik has frozen. Oh no. Oh, there you are. Good. You're back.
Oh, I'm back. Sorry. I didn't know I was out. Okay, sorry about that. Yes, I was saying Singapore is reliant on international trade because of lack of hinterland and lack of a domestic market. But the good news is over the last few decades, Singapore has built a very strong treasury of reserves, which meant that, when the crisis struck, when the pandemic struck, the government was in a position to kind of provide a lot of grants, a lot of support. There was a job support scheme for paying salaries, especially retail and customer facing industries were provided with a lot of support. So that way we were blessed. I think it allowed us to kind of continue as is for 6 to 8 months. But I think businesses that were resilient, that had digital at its core, they figured out a way. They figured out a way to not just continue, but also strive. They strived and they thrived because they figured out new business models. They figured out new ways of leveraging digital to sell overseas. So it was difficult, but I think it also tested our resilience and touchwood, many strong e-commerce, Grab, the ride-hailing companies, and digital companies, came through. A lot of traditional businesses took the opportunity to digitize themselves during the period. So, in hindsight, I think touchwood, most businesses came out fairly all right.
Well, and I think founders take this into consideration, the lesson from the Singapore government, which is that they built up reserves for an emergency. We don't talk enough about this, Prantik, with our companies, but things happen, fires happen, Mother Nature happens, economy changes like COVID can happen. And so what happens is we don't have the reserve in order to skate through that. And so we saw a lot of losses around the world in the startup world. And so I'm hoping Prantik will be coming back, but it is something to remember in what we do here. I'm going to add him to the stream as soon as he comes back. Yay! And he's back. Hey, speaking of internet
it's funny
access,
you said Mother Nature happens.
It's so true. Oh my gosh. And what is it that you love best about your Singapore startup ecosystem? I mean, I know you're investing in the underserved Southeast Asia regions, but about your community that you can turn to. I know I have the Boston ecosystem here, startup ecosystem that I love and adore. What is it that you love and appreciate about your community?
Two things. I think you've used the word ecosystem. I think that's what I love. I love how well thought through, well planned, and well curated the ecosystem is, unlike most parts of the world. So, for example, I grew up in India, Indonesia. So there's a saying in those emerging markets, at least when I grew up, that you typically succeed despite the government. In Singapore, it's the other way around. You typically succeed because of the government, because the government, and having been a government servant, I've seen it firsthand. It is one of the most proactive and professional outfits in the world. Absolutely corruption free, very, very future. The country is so good at scenario planning, futuristic planning. They kind of figure out. So, over my 20 years, I've seen the ecosystem not just grow, but it's been curated to be what it is today. And that's the
Nice. I
beauty of
mean,
Singapore. They kind of
10
figure things out. They
unicorns.
take bets. Yeah. And can you imagine for a small country of 6 million? So if you do the math, it is pretty insane. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. This is a great comment. I'm so sorry I didn't see this sooner. He is asking another great question, which is how would you consider the right amount of or time for an exit?
It's funny, but I would again go back to the why. If you've read Simon Sinek, it is
Yeah.
important to understand why are you exiting? Is it for the money, the liquidity? Is it for another opportunity? Or is it because you're desperate? Is it because the business isn't doing well? Because it has a huge impact on who you sell to and how you sell to. Like, a quick anecdote when we were during the process of our negotiations with the different buyers, our Sam and Hattie, the guys who helped us with the deal as the iBankers, after every meeting they would remind us very, very nicely, saying, guys, remember, you don't have to sell. And it may sound like a cliche, but when you realize that you don't have to sell, you're not forced to sell, it makes your perspective changes. You're like, you know what, I'll
Yes.
entertain the conversation, but no one's forcing me. So it's fine. You're
Nice
negotiating,
place.
your negotiation process, it's a nice place to be. So I think
Yeah.
I would start with the why as to why am I selling?
Excellent, excellent. And I've taken up a whole hour of your time because seriously, the information that you're sharing with us has been so extremely valuable. I want to ask one more question. And the founder journey is very like a roller coaster ride. There's a lot of ups and downs. One minute you're popping the champagne, the next minute you're crying into it. You're solving problems that you didn't even expect were going to happen. You're finding solutions and tapping into amazing parts of yourself. What advice can you give other founders that will help them manage their mindset? What worked for you when you needed to shift out of either frustration or feeling doubt about your capabilities? What worked for you, Prantik?
Firstly, to all the founders, kudos and congratulations uh, for doing what you're doing, because I think that's just a testimony to the fact that you had a lot of belief and a lot of conviction in whatever problem that you're trying to solve. Also, kudos to your family for the sacrifices and for the support, right? So I think one has to acknowledge that uh, the fact that we have the opportunity to found something and to kind of give it a shot. We are blessed, and kudos to you for doing it. I think it's also important to acknowledge that it is a difficult journey. The odds are stacked against you. And there is no shame in failing. There is no shame in acknowledging when you kind of fall short. And I think what's really helped me is two things. One is having a co-founder, as well as having the happy tribe. It's amazing that even at night, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., I could be WhatsApping them and we could be joking around, or we could be making fun of a bad day. I think that eases the pressure. So it's important for founders to realize that you don't have to put a facade that everything's great and your life is awesome and you're on a pedestal. It's fine to have a bad day and fine to open up. You've got to be vulnerable and real as much as possible. The other thing is, if you don't have co-founders or colleagues, where you share that, I think what is very, very useful is finding founder forums. So for example, globally, you might have a organization like EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, and they have these buddy systems in groups of 5 where you speak about literally anything. You could talk about your marital problems or family issues to business
Oh,
issues.
yeah.
I just think every day when you wake up, you've got to be light. You've got to be in a position to take good, strong, objective decisions. That's only possible if you kind of clear your mind and heart. So either do that with your partner, business partner, or your personal life partner. Figure out a forum to do so, and be real, be vulnerable, and be objective.
Excellent advice. So beautiful and so wonderful, especially, the ability to connect with other founders, folks. Nobody knows what you're going through, not your family, loved ones, colleagues out in the world. They have zero idea. Other founders know exactly what you're going through. So that's excellent, excellent advice. Prantik, I'm telling you, you saw me taking the notes, right? You were laying down the gems. We were at Entrepreneurship Church today. We were at the Temple of Entrepreneurship and Startup Life. Thanks to you and your wonderful advice for all of us in all whatever stage we're in. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Andy. And my biggest takeaway is just your positive energy and the word and delicious. I hope one fine day you can come, you bring and delicious live to Singapore. I can assure you, the Happy Tribe and the folks in Singapore, we will get the red carpet ready for you to bring and delicious live to Singapore.
Hands down, I am there. My husband's been there a few times already. You know, he's in renewable energy. So I'm going to tell him right now, and go, honey, plan a trip. I am going to bring the Andelicious to Singapore. Prantik, thank you so much. Give everybody in your world a big hug from me and thank them all for being so resilient, and the Happy Marketer team for continuing to grace the world with their deliciousness as well. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Andy, for doing this, for having a platform of this sort to celebrate entrepreneurship and founders. This is going to do wonders. So thank you. Wish you guys all the best. Thank you so much.
Hi, Rachit. Thank you too for everything that you're doing as well, and to all your families that are supporting you. Oh my gosh. Oops, here we go. I'm going to click on the correct one. Here we go. Oh my gosh, we learned so much today. Seriously, my notes are extensive. I'm going to be putting them into the show notes because there's so many great nuggets that we grabbed from Prantik, from his experience, not just as a founder, but he really understands what's going on, right? He learned, he watched, he grabbed information, and he shared it with us. And I'm so grateful that we got to have his presence and the gift of his presence with us today. Let me share with you who's coming up next on the Startup Life Live show. Of course, we're off for the rest of the week because of the Thanksgiving holiday here in the US. But on Tuesday, November 30th, we're going to talk about hiring great people. My gosh, we have Darian McCall coming, and he's the co-founder and CEO of Qualify, a SaaS platform that powers the fastest phone interview experience in the world and helps recruiting teams hire great candidates faster than ever. They found a serious problem in the recruiting world, and they solved it. Darian is an entrepreneur and business leader out of the Indianapolis, Indiana area, and his passion is bringing people together in order to build products and services that positively impact the world we live in. Oh my gosh, and how do you know when I have a new show ready to glow on the Startup Life Live show? You join the Startup Life Live meetup group. Scan the QR code or visit the link bit.ly/Startup Life Live to join the group, because we always have so many fascinating founders. I mean, look what we learned from Prantik today. It was so incredible. And this is what you can find every time you tune into the Startup Life Live show. I want to share with all of you, as I do at the end of every show, please promise me that you will remember that you're braver than you believe and stronger than you seem. And oh yes, you are smarter, as we say in Boston. You're wicked smarter than you think. You've got this. I'm so grateful for the time that you carved out and to tune in. Please share this with anyone you think who could benefit from Prantik's amazing advice today. And until I see you again, I'm wishing you a delicious day everywhere you glow. Mwah, everybody. Thank you so much.